For this quilt you will need a charm pack of about 40 squares for a baby quilt. Mine is this dinosaur fabric by the National History Museum, and some tonal prints in green and earthy colors. The squares are 5-inch in size. You will also need some backing fabric. This is a print the same as one of the squares. I'm wadding. Mine has one side which is fusible to make it easier. Basic sewing supplies. I like to use a rotary cutter and quilting ruler too. First, you are going to lay out your squares in a pattern you like. Mine is 5 by 7 squares, ideal cot size. So this is row 1 and this is row 2. We will work on one row at a time. Take the first 2 squares and place them right sides together like so. We are going to sew down the right hand side with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Take the next 2 squares and do the same. Work your way across the row. With them sewn, bring them back to the table and lay them out. Check they are in the correct order in doing a pattern. Again, still working the first row, take the first 2 blocks and place them right sides together. Sew down the right hand side again. Repeat along the row. As I have an odd number of blocks, I have one left for the end. I will sew it on now. That is our first row done. Let's move on to row 2. Repeat the process by sewing in pairs along the row. Keep checking that your squares are in the right position before sewing the next one. By working in rows, it makes it easier to stay on track. That is our first 2 rows done. Continue with the rest of the rows in the same way. Now before you sew the rows together, we are going to iron the seams. Iron them so that all of rows go one way, say that to the right, and all even rows go the other way, say to the left. Put the top row down on top of the second row, right sides together. Where the seams join, you will see that they go in opposite directions. This should help lock them in place and give you a neater finish where the points meet. You can pin it in place if you like. Do this all the way along the edge, putting the seams up against each other, locking them in place. When ready, sew along the top. With the seams locked in place, you can see it gives you a better finish where they meet. Continue to work down the quilt, adding rows as you go. You can sew them one by one, or in pairs, then in pairs again. Just make sure that you check they are in the correct order before sewing. That's our quilt top sewn together. The last step is to iron the remaining seams. Make sure your vertical seams are one way or the other. The horizontal ones are best to be ironed open, so that you have a flatter finish to the front. Let's take some measurements so that we can prepare the wadding and backing fabric. Mine measures 23.5 by 30 to 0.5 inches. Yours may be different due to the amount of charm squares used. So I want a 2-inch border on mine when finished, so I need to add 2 inches of wadding extra to all sides of my quilt, and then for 0.5 to 5 inches of backing fabric to all sides. This is including the seam allowance, so I am adding 4 inches to both quilt top measurements for wadding, and at least 9 inches to both quilt top measurements for backing fabric. I always add 1 inch or 2 for trimming. If you want to, you can iron on your quilt top to the fusible wadding now. Leave yourself enough wadding for trimming trimming around the edge. Iron from the center of your quilt top outwards. Do not go too close to the edge with your iron, as you will get glue on the heat plate. The next part is easier with a quilting ruler and cutter. Measure 2 inches from the quilt edge and cut off the excess wadding. Be careful when using a rotary cutter. Another way is to mark it with a pencil, then cut with scissors. Work your way around the quilt top. The next step is to lay your backing down on a flat surface face down. Lay your quilt on top face up. Center it, leaving an equal gap all the way round. Pin to hold it together. If you are having a 2-inch border around the quilt, you will need at least 4 inches plus enough for folding the seam edge under. 4.5 or 5 inches would be ideal. Like before, use your quilting ruler and cutter. Measure out for the quilt edge again. Try to keep all your lines straight and lined up with each other. Cut off the excess fabric. Work your way around as before. So the idea of the extra fabric to pull it forward and create a border as well as bind it at the same time. But we want it to look nice in the corners too. To do that, we need to fold the corner down at a 45-degree angle towards the quilt. Make sure the folded edge is touching the corner of the wadding underneath. The fabric will probably cover the corner of the quilt. If so, you can either cut it off or fold it under. Now you bring the sides over to meet the quilt top, and then fold under the raw edge, so it overlaps the quilt slightly. Pin it in place while you work on the other side. Do the same thing again and fold the fabric towards the quilt. Take your time adjusting and straightening the fabric to get a neater look. You should now have a mitered corner. If there is a small gap, adjust the fabric underneath on either side. When you sew around the quilt, you can also sew into the corner to hold it in place. Or you can hand sew a ladder stitch between the 2 mitered edges and pull them closed. Work around the quilt pin in place as you go. We are now going to sew around the quilt along this folded edge. I am going to sew into the corners too. That's all our borders sewn in place. Now it's time to quilt the top. You can do some things simple like going diagonally across the blocks. Stitch in the ditch or echo quilting following alongside the block edges. If you are into free motion quilting, you could do that too. As you can see, I went with the diagonal quilting across the blocks. I used a sandy colored thread for the top bobbin so it blended better with all the colors. For the bottom bobbin, I used a dark blue so it wouldn't be noticeable on the back. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial and are confident to give it a go yourself now. If you have any questions, please ask away. Thank you for watching, and I hope you will check out my other videos.